Good evening, students. Look, y'all done got me when I'm all good and comfortable. It is late Tuesday night. It is almost 0 degrees outside here in Dallas. But I wanted to make sure I had their videos prepared at the time I said I was going to have them prepared. And so this will be up at the time I said it would be at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesday, February 19th. But happy Wednesday when you see this. And look, y'all, I don't know what's going on at HillmanTok University over on that clock app. But as for me in my class, we're going to keep it rolling. Okay, we're going to keep it rolling. So, did you know that there are still people signing up for this class and I took the link on my bio? I love that for us. But let's go ahead and get started. I promise this video will not be as long as it was last week, but thank you to all of you who watched it, took heed to it, and are already ideating on the project that you all want to work on for this course. So today's class is all about the art of pre-production. And when you think of pre-production, I want you to think of planning, everything that goes into the planning of your project or whatever you're producing, right? And so the acronym for this class, ABCs: access, bandwidth, capacity. If there's nothing else you remember from today's class, I need you to remember those three words, the ABCs. Access, so when choosing your story, whether it be a person or a place, whatever it is, I need you to think about how much access you have to this subject, because if you don't have access, it's going to make for a very hard film. What do you have access to? Bandwidth. Granted, this class is only 8 weeks, but again, you do not have to have a finished product by the end of this class, but just think about your bandwidth. Are you working full time? Do you have other responsibilities? Do you have small children? All of those things. So you want to make it as easy as possible for or bringing this project to completion. And C is capacity. Similar to bandwidth, what do you have the capacity for? If you're anything like me, you are a visionary. You have several ideas and things that you want to bring to fruition. But in this season, like, what all do you have capacity for? So I need you to keep those three: access, bandwidth, and capacity at top and bottom and side to side of mine when coming into this project. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, when it comes to pre-production, it's all of the things that goes into making a successful production day. So it's all about planning. So this is where you put your project manager hat on. This was the part I liked the least when I made my first film, but it's also very necessary when creating a project for the first time or a film for the first time. So if this is something that you want to continue doing, you know how to delegate moving forward. So I'm reading from my screen, y'all. Last week I put edits in this video. This time I'm not. Y'all gonna get what y'all get, all right? So first things first, research mode. What makes for a very efficient pre-production is how much research you not only put into your story, but the resources that you'll need, the tools that you need. Honestly, when I made my first film, it was about 80% went towards the actual research portion, and the other 20% went to the actual physical making of the film, if I were to be completely honest. But this is also where I had a lot of fun. So I spent a lot of time at the library. I spent a lot of time in archival rooms reading through old newspapers, and they had the little machine that you turn the dial so you can, view very old newspaper clippings and researching old news clippings from the actual news station that's no longer live. I had a lot of fun in this space that helped brought my story together of what I wanted to tell. I hyperlinked my film to your syllabus. It's the Kidlock Doc. It is currently on YouTube for you to watch as reference if you have not already. So another thing that I studied in the early stages of creating my film was Kickstarter. And so Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform where creatives all over the world, no matter what you are creating, it could be a board game, it could be a film, but they use that platform to crowdsource supporters to help fund the completion of their project. And so to help bring my campaign or my film to life, I used Kickstarter to raise post-production funds for the completion of my film, raised $28K in 3 weeks. But I studied what made for a successful campaign, and I studied those campaigns, and then I studied what made for an unsuccessful campaign. Why weren't they getting any support? And so I was having a research mode. Granted, I was also in grad school at the time, so I was surrounded by academia. I had no choice but to study because that's the environment that I was in. So whatever your story is, we talked about subjects from last week, issues related to Black culture, Black history, Malcolm X. When you are researching, or spend a lot of time researching to help you refine your story. Number two, informational interviews. This is super, super helpful, and this also goes in the bucket of your research. So, say for instance, you have an idea, you want to interview maybe your neighbor who was a World War II veteran, right? Amazing, amazing concept. But in your informational interviews, that also helps you assess, does this person make for a good interviewer? A lot of people have amazing backstories and they look really good on paper, but that doesn't mean it'll always convey well on screen, or it's like prying teeth just to get them to talk. So this also helps you assess the type of interviewer you are, how comfortable you make your subject, and anything that you need to refine before you actually put a camera in front of their face, and to see how comfortable they are. So this was also part of my research mode. I spent a lot of time doing informational interviews, and this also helped me assess the people who I thought I wanted to be a part of my film. Once I talked to them on the phone and had a preliminary interview with them, I learned they actually don't help move my story forward, or this is going to take a lot of work because you can tell they're not very comfortable answering questions. So I don't want to waste either of our time. And so doing those informational interviews to help refine, who do you want to be a part of this project? Do you need to have more than one informational interview? Could they lead you to somebody better, right? Or if you have somebody in mind that you want to do a story on, and then you get on the phone with them and then they say, actually, on second thought, I don't want to do this anymore. So do not skip this step. Um, Three, drafting out your story. So you kind of did this if you took the time last week to complete your 2 to 3 sentence synopsis. But in the email that you all received last night, I put my documentary story template in there. And this helps. It's very, very extensive, but you can simplify it as what you need to. But drafting out your story helps guide your process along. Use that story template to kind of get a written iteration of what you think your film will be. The beautiful thing about documentaries is that it kind of tells itself. If this was a long form project, so it took me almost 5 years to complete the Kenlock doc, the vision that I have for the film in the beginning is not what it looked like in the end result, and that is absolutely okay. I always say documentaries are like the bare bones, and the interviews that you do and the findings that you come across during your research are like the stew, and then you kind of let it marinate to make a beautiful stew, but never marry the original idea. It's okay if it shifts, as long as it remains truthful. Again, because documentaries are nonfiction, so it has to be truthful. But your orient or your posture towards it can also change, which is absolutely okay. For you visual learners, you this is a good step to take. If you don't have to do it if you don't want to, I do it. Creating a deck. So I'm assuming many of you have come across like proposal decks or pitch decks for maybe things that you have done for your job, or things that you have submitted for a job that you are applying to, or what have you. But this also creates a vision for explaining what you want your film to look like. And so you're pulling concepts from other films. I create mine in Canva, so I'll just search, talking head interviews, and based on how it looks, I'll pull that out and say, this is what I want my interviews to look like. This is the environment that I want it to be in. This is the lighting that I want it to look like, right? And so you just have an ideation session by creating a deck of what you want your film to look like. And I'll also share a link to my deck for you all to see as an example. What else? Along with the story and template of deck, a shot list. I'm giving you all a lot of templates. It's going to feel like a lot of work, but I promise you, the meat of your film is in pre-production. If you have a very effective and efficient pre-production process, your production day, the day you actually take out a camera and press record will go by that much smoother. So creating a shot list, that is exactly what it is. You're creating a list of shots that you want to go inside your film. So for example, it could be one scene, but there are several shots within the scene. A good example of this, I've watched Insecure like 12 times at this point, just rewatching the seasons because I get something new every time I watch it. But there can be a wide shot. So a wide shot is, you say the camera is across the street and you're watching somebody walk towards the door. And then a close up shot would be the person at the door. It's the same scene, but you're coming at it from a different angle. And then another shot can be the person coming inside the door, right? Same scene, same sequence. It's just a different shot. And what this does is provide texture and dimension to your story, so you're not just looking at the same clip for a very long time. If you've ever watched a very boring film, if you're just a talking head and they're talking the entire time, there's no jump cuts, there's no B-roll, there's nothing else, another visual to help amplify and enhance the story, that makes it very, very boring. So think about one sequence, one scene, how many shots can you put within that scene? So if you are interviewing the World War II neighbor, of course, you have your A roll, A meaning primary. So that's the sitting down, talking head. And then maybe you have him walking in the kitchen and making himself a cup of coffee. Maybe you have clips of him going through a photo album from when he was in the military. Maybe you have a clip of him, rubbing. You know how old people be sitting down and rubbing their knees, right? All of these things to add texture and enhance the vision for your film. What else? Interview questions. Interview questions. I'm gonna hyperlink this too. I got this off the TikTok shop. It's called Life Story Interview Kit Tales, and there's over 150 cards in here, and it's by the span of people's life. I'm not gonna go through all of these, but this was like $7. I'm gonna hyperlink it. But if you struggle with coming up with interview questions, especially if you're interviewing a person, I highly recommend this. It has any question that you could ever possibly think of, for whoever you want to ask. But studying the person that you want to interview before you interview them, this is where informational interviews come in handy. Again, people can look good on paper, and then you sit down with them and you're like, I'd rather not. So like I said, this interview kit, life story interview kit, absolutely comes in handy when drafting out your interview questions. And the thing about interview questions, you want to keep them open-ended. Do not guide people to yes and no questions because they're not answering the question. You want to guide people to answer in a way that tells a story, not a yes or no. You want to keep it open-ended, and you also don't want to guide them to an answer that you want. So it's more so, is it true or false that you had a hard life growing up? You would never ask anything like that. It'd be more so, can you tell me about your upbringing? Like, what is one of your most fondest memories being raised in your childhood home, right? And so you're creating a prompt for them in their heads for them to go as deep as they want to. So interviewing is also an art. Another thing I'll say about that too is you want to do it in efficient order. So for example, in the Kinlock doc, my dad is one of the main subjects. I had to interview this man 4 times. And I was also learning how to become a better interviewer. But one of the things that stuck out, I would ask a question that would trigger, not in necessarily a bad way, but it would bring up a memory from maybe a deceased loved one, and he would start to cry in the beginning of the interview. But I still had to interview him. But at this point, now his eyes are red, and I can't keep interviewing him and asking additional questions because his eyes are red for the rest of the interview. So if you have a question that you want to ask them and you think it may be too sensitive, or it may trigger or prompt a memory that may make them emotional, I would save that for the very end. You want your beginning questions to be lighter, to make them comfortable, to bring their shoulders down, to make them less tense, and then you go into the deeper questions towards the ends because you need that footage and you want them to look their best on camera. That's it, y'all. I did good. I'm at 14 minutes. Again, spend time in research, set up informational interviews with people you think you want to interview. drafting out your story using the template I sent you all in an email, creating a deck to serve as a tool to help you plan out what you want your film to look like, along with your shot list, and then your interview questions. Be strategic and intentional with your interview questions. Okay. Also, in this email that I sent Tuesday night, tonight, I invited you all to my Google chat. That is where I'm going to house like our informal conversations where you all can network with one another. I'll be heavily in there. If you want to ask any questions, drop any questions in there. And we will also be having my open I said open house, but I'm gonna host 1 hour on Google Meets every Thursday, 7:30 Central Standard Time, for you all to walk in hours, ask me questions. We can go through your projects. We can, get to know one another and just kiki. Again, no pressure. None of this is mandatory, but I just want to be an added resource to you all as you are completing your projects. That is it for today. Again, homework is not mandatory, but if you want to do it, feel free to send it to my email, HillmanTokFilms@gmail.com. I will see you all next week, week 3, where we will talk about the art of production and get into the actual details of production day. I will see y'all next week. Peace.